really shit at reading when I've had a drink as well.
Oh, me too.
Let's find a chat.
Go chat.
People who haven't read it, maybe I should steer clear of the last chapter. Oh, dude, oh no, no. Oh no, everyone's pointing cameras at me. Right, I'm trying to remember what was kind of... Yeah, can you use that, love, please? Getting in my way.
Read a chapter then and give time away.
I'll tell you what, I'll read 3, maybe 4 pages of the last chapter I got to, okay? Is everyone ready for this?
Yeah.
Not the end, there's no spoilers.
No spoilers, this is chapter 10.
Okay.
Just an extract, okay?
Alright.
And you're not allowed, just a reminder, you're not allowed to drink in here.
I see nothing.
Ah, good man yourself. Chapter 10, Trismegistus. The huge room was lined with gilt-framed portraits, old faces framed in wigs, peering sternly into the middle distance. What do you think of it so far? You're not even looking at me.
I'm listening to you.
We're mesmerised by the very cool words.
It was a library, with rows of bookshelves standing sentry around a long polished central table lined with high-backed chairs. The room was illuminated, but it wasn't clear exactly how. Candles in the sconces were not lit. Oh, there's always one, isn't there? And the fireplace set into the far wall was cold and lifeless, and yet a subtle illumination bathed everything in a soft yellow light. An old man hummed to himself as he wandered among the shelves. A wispy beard moved from side to side. Much like this. That's not actually in here. I'll just add it back for a bit of colour. As he sucked hard on a mint imperial, the little ball of sweetness clacking against his teeth in a strange percussive accompaniment to the elusive, almost tuneless melody he emitted as he shuffled. He was attired in late 17th century dress, a blue frock coat and breeches, with his long silver hair tied back in a shabby grey bow. What really set the outfit off was the sight of his threadbare off-white stockings thrust into a pair of 1970s wool slippers, you know, the ones with nondescript tweedy pattern and rubber soles. Hermes Trismegistus was the keeper of the ancient knowledge of the Arcanum, an ancient society of knowledge gatherers and scientists. They'd been responsible for many of the most important discoveries attributed to mankind, and for many of the great ancient monuments. Their influence was both widespread and profound, but Trismegistus was now the only remaining member of this ancient order. The library contained the sum of their acquired knowledge, books of magic, scrolls of astrological charts, astronomical maps, tomes on the arts of war, catalogues of angels and demons, long-lost sketchbooks gathered from Renaissance masters, and even erotic parchments from the secret papal archives. Trismegistus had not actually had a visit to the library for over 300 years, but continued to make his rounds, to take stock and to procure new volumes, which he added to the Just In section by the front door. Due to the decline in both inquisitive thought and scientific advance of any real value to humanity, a bit of social realism there, even the latest book was about 70 years old, a book of occult doodles by Austin Osman Spare. Spare had succeeded in devising a child's colour by numbers book, which, if completed, would unlock a trans-dimensional portal. The designs were incredibly complicated, but such is the magic of colour by numbers. Images that initially seemed to hint at seaside fun and little boys flying kites actually evolved into intricate geometric forms, Enochian symbols and ancient Egyptian death cult summoning spells. It was a one-off edition and had yet to be placed before an unsuspecting child. Just as well, as apart from the possible dire consequences of opening a trans-dimensional portal, it would have wiped several £100,000 from the value at the first downward stroke of a Crayola. Is that enough? Or should I carry on? This is really hard. As the last remaining member of the Arcanum, Trismegistus saw it as his duty as custodian to see the job through to the very end. Plus, it wasn't a bad place to spend all of his time. It was quiet, he kept his own hours, and hadn't had to issue a late return fine since 1659. Trismegistus ran his roomy eyes along the top shelf of books next to him. All was in order, just as it had been the day before and the day before that. He nodded to himself and placed a tick in the ledger with a long quill pen. As you might expect, his ledger was full of ticks, as were the 12 volumes before that, all neatly lined up behind his desk in the far corner of the room. To most of us, a heart-stopping incident would entail a car crash, or maybe a comet landing, or some such seismic event. Trismegistus' heart stopped at the sight of a gap in his books on the shelf, where yesterday there had been a vellum-bound edition of Tractatus Moralis de Oculi, autographed by Peter of Limoges himself. Today there was just there, a 3-inch space between leathery tomes. Trismegistus gasped and winced as his ledger slipped from his grasp and landed corner first onto the big toe of his left foot. As his toe erupted in hot spasms of agony, the exquisite pain at once made him feel both queasy and yet strangely alive. The sudden introduction of stimulus and sensation into the routine and uniformity of his life brought a strange welling of energy, and he leapt backward, only to ram his head into the shelf behind him. He hit it with such force that the bookshelf began to totter and rock on its ancient wooden base. As he held his head and danced pathetically on his uninjured foot, Trismegistus watched with horror as the shelf started to fall towards the next shelf. In an instant his mind played out the carnage of his library collapsing like a set of dominoes. For a seeming eternity, he watched the shelf swaying and picking up momentum. Incredibly, just as it reached its tipping point, it stopped and slowly returned to its upright position. His sense of relief was overwhelmed instantly by his inquisitiveness. Why hadn't it fallen? Fallen? That's not what it says here. But I like it. Picking his ledger up from the floor and forgetting his throbbing toe, he rounded the shelf to look on the other side. "Hope I didn't startle you, Tris," laughed the priest. And there I'll end it.
Excellent. Thank you for coming, everybody.
Should we go to the pub?
Yes.